Welcome to World Gone Weird, where we try to make sense of, well, everything, or at least laugh at it trying.
Hey everyone, glad to be back. Looking forward to diving into today's interesting news cycle.
Indeed, always something to ponder, question, and occasionally facepalm at from a neutral perspective.
Yeah, interesting is one word for it. I think terrifying is more accurate.
Terrifyingly hilarious, maybe? Like a clown show with nukes.
Aptly put, Sarah. So, what's on the docket today, besides our impending doom?
Well, there's this whole Trump-Ukraine-Russia thing going on again. It's like a geopolitical soap opera that never ends.
Oh, fantastic. Just what we needed. More Trump, more Ukraine, more Russia. It's like a broken record.
A broken record that's also on fire. So, Trump said Putin's doing what anybody would do? Is that the highlight reel?
That's a generous interpretation of international aggression, to say the least. I'm finding it difficult to reconcile that with, the actual reality of the situation on the ground. The article mentioned 14 killed in a Russian strike. What anybody would do seems a bit callous.
It's definitely not a helpful statement, that's for sure, especially when you consider the broader context of international relations and trying to build trust and find peaceful solutions. It undermines any effort to hold Russia accountable.
Accountable? Please. When has anyone ever held Russia accountable for anything? And Trump saying he finds it harder to deal with Ukraine than Russia? Seriously? Is he auditioning to be Putin's best friend or something?
Maybe he just misses the good old days of golfing with Putin. I mean, diplomacy through golf is totally a thing, right? Or is it just something out of a bad spy movie?
It's a worrying sign when the leader of a major world power appears to rationalize the actions of an aggressor. It throws into question the entire framework of international law and the principles of sovereignty and self-determination. Like, if actions are to be assessed in an objective and data-driven way, it looks as if that assessment is failing.
Exactly, and it emboldens other actors who might be considering similar actions. If there are no consequences for violating international norms, then what's stopping anyone else from doing the same?
And what about these widespread sanctions and tariffs he's considering? More trade wars, is that really going to help anyone? Or is it just going to hurt American businesses and consumers?
Oh, trade wars, because nothing says peace like economic warfare. I can just see the doves flying, each carrying a tiny little tariff bill. How cute.
The economic consequences of tariffs are complex and rarely straightforward. They often lead to unintended consequences, disrupting supply chains, raising prices for consumers, and potentially harming domestic industries that rely on imported goods. It's almost as if the idea of global economics are not being considered.
And it creates uncertainty in the market, which can stifle investment and slow economic growth. Businesses don't like uncertainty. They need predictability to make long-term plans.
Predictability in this economy, with Trump at the helm, good luck with that.
Yeah, predictability is so last year. Now it's all about chaos and Twitter rants. Speaking of which, what's the latest conspiracy theory he's peddling?
Well, shifting gears slightly, the article also mentions the impact of millions of Ukrainians facing conscription into the Russian army after Moscow issued passports in occupied territory. This is also in violation of so many concepts within global stability.
That's a horrific situation, forcing people to fight against their own country. It's morally reprehensible.
And completely predictable. Russia has been doing this kind of thing for decades. They're experts at manipulating and exploiting vulnerable populations.
Oh, exploitation. The gift that keeps on giving. At least it gives Putin something to do in his spare time. It's not like he has any real hobbies. Probably just collects Feyberge eggs and dreams of world domination.
The long-term implications of this forced conscription are deeply concerning. It not only violates fundamental human rights, but also exacerbates the conflict and further destabilizes the region. These actions lead to cognitive and psychological stress on the involved individuals.
It's a form of cultural erasure, too. Forcing Ukrainians to become Russian soldiers is a way of erasing their identity and their connection to their homeland.
And the world just stands by and watches. We issue strongly worded statements and slap on some sanctions that don't really do anything. It's pathetic.
Pathetic, but also predictable. It's like watching a rerun of a really depressing show. You know exactly what's going to happen, but you can't look away.
It does seem the world powers can act as a pendulum in that case. The report mentions that Trump tries to rebalance his pro-Russia message on the war in Ukraine, then backtracks, which does seem to make the situation very convoluted to act on.
It's like he's trying to have it both ways, appease his base while also trying to appear like he's taking a strong stance against Russia. It doesn't work.
He's playing a game, Otto. It's all a performance. He doesn't care about Ukraine or Russia or anything else except himself.
A performance? You mean like a bad reality TV show? Because that's what it feels like. And we're all stuck watching it whether we want to or not.
The danger is that this constant shifting of narratives erodes trust in institutions and in the very concept of truth. When the lines between fact and fiction become blurred, it becomes much harder to hold anyone accountable.
It also makes it harder to build consensus around solutions. If people can't agree on what the problem is, how can they possibly agree on how to fix it?
Exactly. And that's exactly what he wants. Divide and conquer. Keep everyone fighting each other so he can do whatever he wants.
The classic playbook of dictators everywhere. So, what's next? Will he try to sell Ukraine to Russia for a luxury condo in Moscow? Or maybe just trade it for a lifetime supply of hairspray?
The article in The Guardian speaks to this quandary with Trump's polarizing appeal leaves European populists in a tight spot, depending on if the base supports Trump or opposes Russia, and also looking at internal affairs and sentiments. What is a politician to do?
It highlights the very real tension that exists between nationalist ideologies and the need for international cooperation. These populist leaders often champion national sovereignty above all else, which can make it difficult to find common ground on issues like the war in Ukraine.
National sovereignty? That's just a fancy way of saying we don't care about anyone else. It's a recipe for disaster in an interconnected world.
Yeah, national sovereignty is like saying my sandbox, my rules. Except the sandbox is the entire planet, and the rules are written in crayon by a toddler.
The article points out that some European populists are starting to distance themselves from Trump's stance on Ukraine, fearing that it will damage their domestic support. This suggests that public opinion is starting to shift, and people are becoming more aware of the dangers of Trump's isolationist policies.
Hopefully, it's a sign that people are starting to recognize that international cooperation is essential for addressing global challenges. We can't solve problems like climate change, pandemics, or war on our own. We need to work together.
Work together? With who? The UN. They're useless. The EU? They're a bureaucratic nightmare. Nobody wants to work together. Everyone's just looking out for themselves.
Well, maybe if we threw a really big party with free pizza and beer, we could get everyone to agree on something. Or maybe just bribe them with cat videos. Everyone loves cat videos.
These reactions from European populist parties underscore the tension between nationalist tendencies and the need for a coordinated approach to international relations. This highlights the complexities of political ideologies and their influence on national interests and decision-making.
And it also shows the power of public opinion. Politicians, even populist ones, are ultimately accountable to the people they represent. If enough people speak out against Trump's policies, they might be forced to change course.
Public opinion? You mean the echo chambers on social media? That's not public opinion. That's just a bunch of angry people yelling at each other.
True, social media is mostly just a digital shouting match. But every now and then, a good meme can change the world. Or at least make me laugh for 5 seconds.
Speaking of opinions, the last article discusses Lady Gaga, which she might not be directly related to global politics, but she always makes a statement with her choices. How does her deliberate choices of style and appearance influence social perceptions and perceptions of her personal power?
It is an interesting article. It talks about the old Gaga coming back, and style can be very reflective of inner states or reflective of stances on things. I wouldn't discount it entirely. The point is that we are all ever evolving.
Lady Gaga? What does Lady Gaga have to do with anything? Is this show turning into a celebrity gossip rag now?
Hey, leave Lady Gaga alone. She's a national treasure, and her fashion choices are way more interesting than anything coming out of Washington these days. Plus, she's probably more qualified to run the country than half the people already in charge.
The article suggests that Gaga's return to her more avant-garde style coincides with a period of political and economic turmoil, implying that her fashion choices might be a reflection of, or a response to, the anxieties of the times. She has been referred to as a recession indicator after all.
That's an interesting point. Art often reflects the social and political climate in which it's created. Maybe Gaga's fashion is a way of expressing the chaos and uncertainty of the world.
Or maybe she just likes wearing weird clothes. Not everything has to be some deep philosophical statement.
But even if it's just weird clothes, it still speaks to people. It's about freedom, about self-expression, about not giving a damn what anyone else thinks. And in a world full of dictators and trade wars, that's a pretty powerful message.
And to connect it back to politics, Trump's apparent disregard for established diplomatic norms and international relations is like Gaga showing up to a formal event in a meat dress. It's shocking, it's disruptive, and it raises serious questions about the long-term implications. What unintended consequences might result from such a disregard for traditional approaches to international relations?
I can see that analogy. It's a disruption of the status quo, a challenge to the established order. But the question is, does that disruption lead to positive change, or does it just create more chaos and instability?
Chaos and instability, definitely. Trump is a walking, talking chaos generator. He thrives on it.
Yeah, he's like a toddler with a nuclear football. You just never know what he's going to do next.
Well, as always, the unintended consequences of extreme rhetoric are numerous, global, and often tragic. I hope there is a way to see past these events and towards a positive future, somehow.
It is concerning, but I think it's important to remember that there are also a lot of people working hard to build a better world. People who are committed to diplomacy, to human rights, to environmental protection. We can't let the voices of extremism drown out the voices of reason and compassion.
Reason and compassion. In this day and age, that's a nice thought, Otto, but I'm not holding my breath.
Well, even if it's just a tiny glimmer of hope, it's better than nothing, right? And hey, at least we have Lady Gaga to distract us from the apocalypse.
Exactly. And we have each other to keep talking about these things, to keep questioning, to keep searching for solutions.
Okay, well, I am going to go listen to Lady Gaga and hopefully not think about world affairs for a few hours.
That sounds like a solid strategy for preserving one's mental health. Until next time, everyone, stay informed, stay skeptical, and try to find some joy in the absurdity of it all.
Yeah, stay skeptical. That's the best advice anyone can give you these days.
Later, folks. Don't forget to tip your waitresses, try the veal, and always, always wear sunscreen.